All right, everybody. We are back with our last part of the breakdown, Part 3. We're going to be breaking down Ty, mine, Berg, and MJC's team to round out our draft. And I got Ty here back again with me. Say what's up.
Hey man, I'm ready to talk about some teams.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's finish this thing out strong. Well, we're going to start off with your team. So if you just want to talk about like your draft strategy and kind of how you try to piece everything together, go ahead.
Yeah, so I had the second draft pick, and I was pretty set on Urshifu Single Strike. My other option that I was hoping for was Dragapult, so I was really glad that Dodge picked Dragapult, so that it made me have to pick Urshifu, because if they were both sitting on the table, I would have felt really awkward, because I think Dragapult is better, but Urshifu seemed like a lot of fun, and we hadn't allowed it before, so I really wanted to give it a go. And since it has such a glaring weakness to fairies and really gets walled by them, what I needed to do was build around that. So I wanted to have something bulky and fast with momentum, so I picked up Torn T to tag along with it, and that was going to be my plan as my Terra Captain. But that ended up not happening because a few rounds later, after I had picked up Torn and Glamora, and I think I might have had Azelf at that point too, Enamorus was still sitting there, and I really wanted to try it out as a Terra Captain with Fairy Ground. There's not a whole lot of switch-ins, and since I was already piecing together quite a bit of momentum, it should allow me to get in Urshifu and Enamorus pretty well, since they need to come in cleanly and then just sort of click a button. It's really hard to switch in on either of these mons. And that's sort of the game plan for the team. I realized originally that I didn't have as much bulk as I wanted. I had 2 regen mons with Torn and Alamomola, but outside of that, there wasn't like a ton of bulk.
Yep.
So I ended up dropping Azelf for Meloetta, which helped on the special side quite a bit. Meloetta is actually really bulky, which
Yeah,
is
it's like
pretty
128,
nice.
right?
Yeah, 100 HP and 128 special defense, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
That helped out a ton. And then that gave me 3 points to adjust my Haunter pick to Miss Magius, which I think is going to be a lot more beneficial. It's just a little bit better of a mon, which is nice, and gives me a more reasonable spin blocker to have, which helps out a lot for Glamora and Fortress, because I'm probably going to be trying to take advantage of hazards just to chip things down a little bit, so that those like banded Wicked Blows actually pick up kills on everything it needs to, and probably gets some 2-hit KOs on the things that resist it.
For sure.
But yeah, basically,
yeah, I like
the game plan for the team is just switching around and getting those mons in to blow stuff up.
Yeah, I love how much momentum you got on the team. It's going to be really hard to kind of keep your checks healthy when you play against you, because you switch in like a physical wall into Urshifu, get U-turned out, now Enamorus comes in, and now you got a Terra Fairy Moonblast staring you in the face. That's that's not going to be a good time, and then that physical wall needs to switch out. Enamorus can just chunk into a special wall or double out into like Torn or Rotom or whatever, and then just keep that vortex going of like the Voltorn core. And like, I don't know, like I started prepping for, we're playing each other week 1. I started doing a little prep for it, and that's definitely had me in the blender just in the team builder. So we'll see how the game goes. But yeah, I think your team is really strong. One thing I did notice is that realistically, Urshifu and Serena are probably going to be your only physical attackers on a week-to-week basis that are going to do like significant damage. Now Enamorus can like run like a contrary superpower set, and having physical Terra Blast Ground is really good. That way you don't have to, hit superpower on stuff if you don't need to, or more coverage for fire types or whatever. But like, the team is mostly specially offensive. So that might just be an interesting dynamic while you're building, trying to like figure out what you're going to end up breaking.
Yeah, that's a good point. And part of that comes from dropping Azelf for Meloetta.
Sure.
I mean, I guess technically Meloetta can go Relic Song and go for the physical attacker. It's sort of hard to get off, but
Yeah.
that'll be fun to bring. when it happens, and then have 2 physical fighting mons going at it that week. But
I think your pickup of Miss Magius in the Grace Period was really smart with Glamora, because your original draft didn't have any spin blockers. And now, like, between Miss Magius and Enamorous, you have a defog deterrent and a spin blocker, and you have the best hazard setter in the league. So that was, like, kind of a glaring hole in the draft, and you patched that up, like, before week 1. So I really can't find any, like, major flaws with it. I think your type chart, like, you have, like, a little bit of an electric and a rock weakness, but you Terra Enamorous into a ground type, and I think you're neutral across the board, except for, like, no, I think that's pretty much everything. You might be a little weak to water then, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, if I go Terra Fairy, it turns those weaknesses into neutrals, I think.
Yep.
And then if I go Terra Ground, yeah, they actually turn into overall resistances, but then I pick up a weakness to water, which is fine. But yeah, one of the other things I liked about Miss Magius is it gives me a pretty good Hex user, which should go pretty well with Rotom and Glamora. And even Serene Grace on Meloetta is probably going to be getting some statuses here and there. But yeah, I'm excited to use this team. There's a few mons on here that I've been wanting to try for a while. Like I've been meaning to pick up Serena. I think it seems pretty cool. It's really bulky and a nice spinner to have with momentum. So I wish it still got knockoff, but that's all right. Oh, that was another thing. I have so many mons that used to get knockoff, and I have 0 knockoffs now.
Yeah, that's
really funny.
That's tough. I mean, you do have the best dark move in the game in Wicked Blow, but the former best of knockoff, that would have been really nice to have.
Yeah, it would have been on like half my team, but that's okay.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, I mean, you got good hazard setters, great removal. You know, like one of your removal and hazard setters are going to come every week, just pretty basic. But yeah, I like your draft. Any final comments on it?
No, more excited about this team than I was with my team last season. So yeah, hopefully it'll be fun to use.
So let's hop into my team here. We got my first pick, Spectrier. I really want to use Dragapult, and I took the next best thing, in my opinion. So something from my draft last season is I didn't have a really solid cleaner. I guess you can make an argument for Palafin, of course, with Jet Punch and everything in the end game, but I didn't have anything faster than Iron Jugulus at the end of the season. I think that was my top. It was around 110, which was not fast enough for me. It made me have to use Palafin over and over, and kind of stressed me in the team builder a little bit. So I was like, nope, I'm drafting speed this draft. I don't care. And Spectre just seems really cool. Obviously, it's busted with Terra, and I can't Terra it. I went with Terra King Gambit, but I still think it can snowball, even just with the little coverage it ended up getting this gen with like Draining Kiss, Psychic, and Dark Pulse. Yeah, I'm just excited to use it. I don't know if I'm going to be the best with it, but I'm going to give it my best and try to show it off a little. But yeah, I was kind of flip-flopping a little bit on what Terra Captain I wanted to draft originally. I initially had a plan for like a Spathra as a Terra Captain, thought that would be pretty cool. Then as I started building around stuff, I was like, yeah, I think that may be a little redundant in like the snowball aspect with Spectrier, and I don't know if I could fit both onto the team as well as I'd really want to. So I just started drafting demons afterwards. It's pretty much my draft plan. I went with Hisuian Samurott to Spike Stack with a good spin blocker and Spectrier, and then King Gambit was still sitting there. I was like, yep, you're going to be the Terra Captain. And I went with Fairy and Flying. As you can see, I don't have a Fairy type on my team, and my type chart, I am weak to ground overall. I drafted pretty balanced with all of the types, but I didn't have a Fairy partial typing, and Rotom and Zapdos are my only things off the ground, and I have a bunch of things weak to ground moves, so that kind of made sense. I wanted to run like a Terra Dark just for like the damage output, but I think I can get away with it. It'll be all right. Overall, though, I got lots of removal options. In terms of like what I would bring each week, right? Cinderace or Donphan are probably coming every week, or at least one of them is. And then in OU right now, it's the best hazard setter. There may be some arguments for like Lamora and some other things in Draft League, but I got Samurott, so I'm going to be layering up spikes, and I took Cinderace kind of to snipe people from taking it from me, or like counter teaming me, I guess, in draft, where they would be able to flip all those spikes back onto my field.
Yeah, I mean, I am already sort of worried about Cinderace week 1. Obviously, I have Glamora, which
right,
really
exactly.
annoying matchup for it. But yeah, I think it's really cool that you actually don't have a defog mon, because that really hurts Donphan and Samurott. Samurott more, but they're just really good hazard setters, and having a defog would really be unfortunate. So I think it's good that you got a really good spinner. Carcoal's good too, I guess, but Donphan's a super good spinner.
Yep, exactly. We've seen Carcoal put in work. Now that was when it was a Terra captain back in the Boomer League, but like, yeah, Carcoal's actually like pretty decent value all the way down there with a Violate and everything. And it gives,
so bulky. And
this is something we talked about before the draft, is like drafting U-turn deterrents. So like Carcoal having Flame Body, I got ghost types, I got things that resist it, and then I have a good like Defiant user and Zapdos for defog deterrent as well. I kind of got a little taste of everything I was really wanting to in this draft, which feels really good. Like I couldn't tell you exactly what the team's missing. It feels like it's missing something, other than just like a pure type or whatever, like maybe a certain role or speed tier. Something just feels like a touch off, but overall, like I actually drafted pretty much everything I wanted to, and I just think everything on my team can do different things every week too. Like Samurai can be physical or special, it can be a hazard setter, it can be a setup sweeper. Spectrier can be like some Hex Will-O-Wisp sets where it's just really annoying for the other team, or it could be like a Spec Snowball set where I just get rid of a normal type and then boom, Shadow Ball wins. And then, I got like trick options with Slowbro and Rotom. I do only have 3 Momentumons, Cinderace, Gyarados, and Rotom, but like none of them get walled too hard by anything. I'd be like a little worried about like a static mon like Zapdos or something with U-turn. But like having an electric that's also part grass type, that you don't want to switch your ground type in to block my Volt Switch as freely. Plus it's faster than most ground types, that I could just Leaf Storm you if you come in anyway. So like that, I think I can actually keep the momentum up and get into some strong stuff like Glowbro, Samurott, Spectrier, or one of my other momentum mons and try to put in work. I something's missing and I have not put my finger on it. I can't get there yet. I don't know.
I know what you mean. I do wish there was a little bit more momentum, but like at least the mons that you do have are going to be running it quite often, which is good. Like Rotom's going to have Volt Switch basically in every set, and
sure,
you can run U-turn on Gyarados most times, especially if it's a Scarf or Band set. It's most likely bringing it. I wish your Poison type got Toxic Spikes. I don't know why Glowbro doesn't have it.
Glowking gets it, but not Glowbro.
Yeah, Glowking doesn't. Yeah, so like, I mean, like that's nitpicking, but it would be really nice for Spectrier if there was a Toxic Spike mon on the team.
Sure.
Let's see. Rotom's really good with Spectrier to help spread status with discharges and Will-O-Wisps, which is really nice. I mean, you could even run a bulky set on Cinderace with Will-O-Wisp. I'm assuming it gets that.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Just to help Spectrier just really bring it in at the end. But yeah, I mean, Carcoal is even pretty cool with it, with Flame Body and Will-O-Wisp.
Yep. Yeah, and I know from prepping for Goodra in many seasons of Draft League how annoying it is to prep for, and I needed some special defense, and I was like, yep, that couldn't fit any better on this team, because I'm not going through that again, especially with like Spectre, trying to figure out what I'm going to do against Goodra. Like, I'm good on that. So that's one of the mons that you put 252 in every stat for it in the calculator, and then you just start like playing around with the natures as you're attacking into it, and you're like, yeah, well, like if he runs Assault Vest, it's going to do this. Oh, he could be max defense, like bold, and then run like an acid armor set. Like, okay, crap, how do I break that? Acid Spray to bust down Calm Minders, Dragon Tail, obviously a ton of coverage. Like, Gudra's so annoying to prep for. I was not putting up with that again.
Yeah, I mean, I love Gudra. I think it's an easy mon to put onto basically any team that doesn't already have a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned, you didn't have a ton of special defense. You had Rotom, and then your second highest was Zapdos. So like,
Yep.
There wasn't a lot there, and Gudra just fills that hole. It's also really nice because it can basically fill in any hole for coverage moves. If there's something you're missing that week, it basically can cover for it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's an easy mon to just throw into the 6th spot.
For sure. So something I was talking about with other teams is like the overloading of like attack versus special attack, like with just like your team compositions and everything. And I don't necessarily have like a special breaker other than like Nasty Plot, Glowbro, or if I wanted to use Spectre as a special breaker and have a physical mon clean up in the end, which could work obviously with like Cinderace and King Gambit, like that's totally viable, or even Scarf Gyarados. But yeah, I would, if I wanted to use Spectre in the end game and get rid of some special stuff, I would probably have to use like Nasty Plot on Glowbro or Rotom to really like bust those down. Which is probably going to be a little bit more difficult just getting like my mind around in the team builder. But I like to get a little creative, so I'm sure I'll find something eventually.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and it's weird because like in order to replace something else so that you'd have something like that, I think you'd have to drop something that was like a really crucial part of the team. So I don't think it's necessarily worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you should be fine with Spectre alone.
yeah, it's 145 base special attack.
Yeah, it's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, because you think Dragapult, you put specs on it, that Shadow Ball is going to hit crazy hard. That's only coming off of 100. So like Spectre is obviously it has more downsides than Dragapult in terms of coverage, but if you're able to eliminate those threats, then yeah, that could just be a real quick GG.
Yep, and King Gambit as a Terra Captain is really cool, by the way. I didn't really get to talk about it. I was really hoping somebody was going to get it as a captain. Terra Fairy is super scary, and Terra Flying is also just good in general with resisting fighting, and it matches well into your actual team composition, not just, King Gambit itself.
Well, and like the 2 Gen 9 leagues that we've played in so far, we've seen King Gambit like put in work, and that was without it being a Terra Captain. You just like run a Choppleberry on it and it's living any hit essentially. That's not like too boosted, even if it's a fighting type move, because its stats are just incredible. You think it's mostly physical, but on the bulky side, but it has 85 special defense, so like it can eat hits on both ends pretty easily, even with just like max HP, and obviously retaliate in the end game with a Supreme Overlord. But
seriously,
I didn't mention, so I technically have double Defiant. I could run Defiant on King Gambit too to keep those spikes up in front of Defoggers.
Yeah, and like it's such a good ability that you could bring it over Supreme Overlord. Like if a team has multiple Intimidates or something like that. I know when I played E last season, I wasn't sure if he was bringing Defiant or not, especially I think it was right after he played you and should have brought Defiant, and I was like, uh-oh, I feel like he's gonna bring Defiant, and I don't think he did, but I had to play as if he did, because it would be really bad if he did.
Yeah.
It still cooked me, but it was okay.
I guess that is one downside, having these 2 Defiant mons that potentially might not be touching the ground for getting a web boost or something. Maybe I just go Terra Fairy that week, but I could see myself messing that one up one week, going like, oh, where's my attack race?
I mean, most of the time you're probably gonna have it come in after webs are already up, if that's the case.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I can run like Iron Ball on it or something and ground myself.
That'd be pretty funny. I wouldn't be surprised by something like that.
But yeah, that's pretty much all for my team. I'm ready to use it. I'm pumped. I'm not looking forward to week 1 though. That's for sure.
Yeah, I wish our game was a little bit later in the season, but that's okay.
Get comfortable with the team, yeah. But yeah, we'll just slide on over to MJC here. MJC really wanted Salamence as his first pick. He talked about it before the tier list even dropped. And unfortunately, Tommy had to make a mascot change, and that kind of eliminated that pretty quickly. But yeah, so he ended up going with Lando, and Quaquaval is his first 2 picks, and that's just like, it's such a good core right off the top. You get your offense, you get your speed tiers, you cover a lot of types that way. And then we see the dual Terra captains. He's the only one in the league right now with 2 Terra captains. For anybody not in the league watching this, we're allowing dual Terra captains if their Terra points don't add up to more than 19 collectively. So Frostmoth and Lokix add up right there, the double bug Terra. And yeah, I like MJC's team. I'm worried about like screens with Frostmoth or Quaquaval. I think that's going to be really tough.
Yeah, Quaquaval and Frostmoth are going to really snowball super fast. Grimmsnarl was a really cool pickup for, to end on. He's always really good at preserving points.
Yeah, exactly.
And going big on his last few picks. I mean, he literally ended on Slowbro, Lucario, Grimmsnarl, which, you know, I mean, they're not like cheap, but
the fact that all 3 were still chilling there, though.
Yeah, that's true. I'm excited to see how Kilowattrel does. That's a mon I know both of us had our eyes on.
Mm-hmm.
I think it offers a good bit for his team. It gives him a good. Well, he has Noivern, so I guess the speed tier isn't too big of an issue, but 125 is really nice. But gives him some extra momentum and whatnot at the high speeds to help get in some of that other stuff. Low kicks is going to be super scary. He went double stab on his Terras. The first impressions and the sucker punches are going to be really hard to handle. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty strong. I think Heatran's going to take a pretty defensive role, but that's perfectly okay because it's really good at it.
Right, so I was looking at the hazard setters, and like Heatran's probably going to be running rocks pretty much every week, and you know, it's fine because honestly, at the end of the day, like if you're setting up screens with Grimmsnarl, you're just asking for defogs, so there's not a whole lot of point in putting up your own hazards in that sense. And something with like his speed tiers, he has that gap between 123 and 101, but from playing years and years of like OU from like Gen 5 through Gen 7, I know that like Tyranitar at +1 outspeeds base 110s, and Tyranitar is what, 4 points slower than Frostmoth? I think it's 61. Yeah. So timid Frostmoth after Quiver Dance literally fills that speed tier that you're missing. It's like perfect synergy right in between there. You know, it's essentially a base like 117 mon or something like that. But yeah, I think Lando and Frostmoth end up actually covering that gap. So
funny to think about.
Yeah, and obviously Quaquaval too. Like, if you're not running like speed on that, and then you hit an Aqua Step, now you're honestly probably sliding back into that speed tier as well.
Yeah, he's got some cool mons that can really get out of control between those 3, and I think Low Kicks is gonna help Quaquaval and Frostmoth put in some work. I mean, Landorus too.
Yeah, we were running some calcs with Terra Bug first impression, and it was just stupid. It was so stupid. Like, you essentially have to have Heatran. Oh, look at that. He has it, so nobody else does. Yeah, like, you have to go into a quad resist on that, and even then, that's still taking 50%. It's just an insane amount of damage with banded first impression off Terra Bug.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to bring it pretty frequently. I like that he has a really good Rapid Spinner in Quaquaval. Like you mentioned, like he's going to want to bring screens pretty frequently, I'd imagine. And relying on Defog from Noivern, and I can't imagine he would use it on Frostmoth. It's decent defogger, but since it's his captain, he's most likely going to use it to set up. So it's nice to have a good Rapid Spinner for that slot.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like Frostmoth a little bit as a defensive mon with like Terra Ground to be like your because it has U-turn, it's got defog, so like you could use that as a pivot, and like the amount of momentum he has on his team, yeah, everybody's just gonna be in the vortex. Like you're gonna get trapped because you're gonna switch into your Terra Bug resist, and then you're gonna have to eat the U-turn off of Low Kicks. and then boom, he's right back into something that's pressuring you that's probably faster, whether Kilowatts or Noivern or Lando, and then you got to switch back out. They U-turn right back out because all three of them have it. Like, I think he's just going to get people in the blender pretty quick.
Yeah, and I really like Parting Shot on this team as well. I think it helps out a ton since it forces switches. But yeah, that should be pretty cool to see.
Mm-hmm. And once again, classic MJC drafting a lot of offense. Obviously, he's got, like, Heatran likes being specially defensive, Slowbro physically defensive, and they cover each other really well, on type weaknesses and everything. But for the most part, he's just going to be running a lot of offense every week, and he can get away with that because of the screens. He doesn't need all that bulk.
Yeah, the screens definitely help fill it in a bit, but yeah, I mean, with Heatran and Slowbro, they can come all the time and probably be okay.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, MJC, well done. Well done. Especially having your first pick sniped and just kind of drafting on the fly. It's pretty impressive. But yeah, we'll finish up here with Berg. So I talked to Berg a lot through the draft process and everything, and kind of beforehand what he was kind of leaning since he was the third pick. So we see the Iron Bindle with the first pick, going for the meme name. It's such a good speed tier that even if it may not be like the cream of the crop of the 19 pointers in the top tier, like you're checking that box off, and the rest of your draft you can just draft anything speed wise after, and you have no worries because Booster Energy or Scarf are going to be pretty common on it. And it obviously puts in work having such good coverage between water and freeze dry. But yeah, the idea initially was go Zapdos with Terra Captain Scissor. Zapdos ended up getting sniped like 2 or 3 picks beforehand, and so the audible was to go Thunderous and make that the Terra Captain. I mean, it's so good with like that ice or flying coverage where you can't feel safe switching into ground types anymore. And then the fact it can be physical or special every week with a really good speed tier and lots of setup moves, it's going to be really, really good. I want to see some sort of like Swagger Mirror Herb set at some point. That would be really dope. And then just have like a physical Terra Blast Ice or flying or off Acro or something because you just consumed your item. Like, he's got a lot of options on the offensive end with that. And then he just has this like really great backbone of defensive core. The 4 slowest mons on his team, but they all cover each other really well. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
I love his first 3 picks. I had all of them on my team last season.
Yep.
They're really cool. Iron Bundle can basically come every week. Freeze Dry, Hydro Pump hits like everything. I think it would have been really cool to see it as a Terra Captain this season, but Thunderous is a really cool one to have. It makes Thunderous a lot better because it really misses out, especially on the physical side, on quite a bit of moves that it lost.
Mm-hmm.
So giving it the flying and ice coverage is going to be pretty strong, and makes its Defiant set a lot stronger. With that said, I wish he had more hazard setters to go along with it to force those defogs and get the Defiant boost. I think that would be pretty cool. But yeah, I'm excited to see how some of the mons play.
I think his team is going to be very high skill in the sense of the hazards for sure. Where you have Espeon to bounce things back, and then you only have Gastrodon to set them up. Now Gastro does get spikes and Stealth Rock, so like you can definitely still layer it up and be annoying, or bounce things back, and now you're forcing rapid spins or defog on the other end because of Espeon. And I know Berg is pretty comfortable with Espeon, so that may be something that he can kind of make like read on and get that in at the correct times. But yeah, I think for the most part, he's really just going to be relying on like the top 3 offensive mons, Bundle, Thunderous, and Scissor to like put down a ton of damage, and then really just bring in that bottom 4 core defensively. They can just pivot into. They don't have momentum, of course, but they can switch in and out really freely. A Moongus having Regenerator makes that like a lot safer, where you're not too worried about the health on it. And then you just make a double instead of going into a defensive mon, go into one of your offensive ones, and then now boom, you got the upper hand and you're forcing other things out on the other side. Not to mention Unburdened Halucha. That's a threat to take a game over at any point as well.
Yeah, we saw how well MJC did with Halucha in playoffs last season. That thing, it can put in some work. And I think that Halucha, Iron Bundle, and Thunderous all make pretty good leads for his team too, in case there is a hazard setter and he can just do like a quick fast momentum out and get Espeon in. That way he starts chipping things down and getting in his magic bouncer, which is pretty cool. And since he has so much special offense, he can actually try to run more defensive sets on Espeon. It's not like crazy bulky, but you know, on the special side it can put in some nice defense.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, like you said, it's going to take a little bit of high skill plays, some good reads and whatnot, but I think it could be pretty fun to see how it goes.
Well, we saw this throughout all of last season. Like, the growth in this league and just the skill level overall has just, like, it's exponential. Every single season, everybody gets way, 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 way better. You know, like, Berg made a massive leap, and he was, you know, what, third or fourth at the end of the regular season last season after, you know, being near the bottom the first 3 seasons, right? Like, it just explosion. Dodge making it to the championships in season 3. Like, everybody is playing super, super well now. That, you know, I have a little bit more confidence in, like, making some of those doubles or making some of those reads and kind of letting the offensive stuff show off.
Yeah, definitely. And to go back to how much bulk he has on this team, a lot of his bulk even has recovery too, right? Like, Amoonguss has regen, he's got slack off, he's got recover. I don't think Enamor's has much, but...
Well, Calm Mind, Draining Kiss. It's going to slurp everything back up, yeah.
That's enough. And then is one pick that we haven't talked about. Mabostiff is really cool. I'm excited to see how that goes because I haven't actually even seen anybody draft it before, but it has such a strong attack. And at 120 with Stakeout, which if you pivot it in on something that needs to switch out, that is going to do so much damage.
It's crazy.
Yeah, whatever comes in is not really a switch in anymore. So that'd be cool to see because that's a pretty low point mon to pick up, and it seems like it fits pretty well. Yeah, which is cool.
It's got decent defense still. If you wanted to run like an Intimidate set, it actually has decent coverage, like we were just talking about before we started recording. You know, Play Rough, Wild Charge. I think Psychic Fangs.
Yep.
Yeah, it gets Outrage for whatever reason. But I think my favorite move on it is Destiny Bond. That like it's a good enough speed tier at 85 where you throw a Scarf on that, and now you got Destiny Bond option to, you know, take out something faster that might be threatening Bundle or Thundy or something that you want to end up winning the game with. Let's see. Yeah, no, Mabostiff's sick. Banded crunches off of Stakeout. That's the big thing I'm looking forward to, but. It fit the speed tier really well. Everything is covered. You know, Halucha covers up to Bundle, with the exception of Chien Pao. That's the only mon in there that would be able to afford to run Adamant instead of Jolly, but guess what? Nobody drafted it, so you're chilling. Yeah, I don't think there's any 135s that anybody has, if I'm not mistaken.
Plus he's got Scizor, which can always click Bullet Punch, or not click it.
Well, right. Throwback. If you understood that one, please leave us a comment. Just a roast tie. But yeah, that wraps up our draft and everything. I'm looking forward to it again. I don't think anybody had a bad team. You know, like, just off the top of my head, like, Tan had some funky speed tiers, but like the team was pretty well balanced and like should be able to facilitate some of the good stuff. I know I'm missing something on my team. I can't put my finger on it, but maybe we figure that out after week 1, after I get 6-0'd by Ty.
Hey man, we'll see what happens. You cooked me in our last week 1 matchup.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, that was like a legacy game for me. I don't think I'm going to pull that out again. But yeah, no, thanks, Ty, for hopping in and doing these slides once again. And yeah, hope everybody enjoyed. Ty and I will be playing our game the day that this releases. So look forward to that later tonight.
Cool, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for the season.
Yeah, let's get it. All right, boys. Peace.